Let me welcome everyone to this service. We've begun with some slides of Gillian's life. But of course, as in all things, when we lose someone to death, we've been given something and we have something lost that we cannot again have in quite the same way. A memorial service celebrates a person's life, and if you're new to being at a Unitarian Universalist service, let me introduce myself. I am the Reverend Jean Pupke, and I serve as senior minister of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Richmond, Virginia. This is a church that Gillian joined when she moved to Westminster, Canterbury. And we were delighted to have her in her last years as a member who occasionally would walk out the door after a Sunday sermon and give me a little joke as she did so. For those of you who knew Gillian, I'm sure that's a familiar thing. And we like, as Unitarians, to celebrate the life of our members. It is true that death is a sad moment, a time when we are not always able to process all that has been lost. And yet, when someone lives into their 10th decade with joy and love and verve and humor, we do have to celebrate that without doubt. So we're gathering online. We're in a Zoom meeting, which means that if you unmute yourself and begin to cough or do dishes or something else, we'll know all about it. So what we try to do is to invite everyone to keep their mute on while they are in the meeting. And when you go to speak, to take it off. We'll have more about that later on to make it easy for you to remember, but just to help everyone be able to hear what is being offered, let's make sure we mute ourselves before, after speaking, and unmute ourselves if we are invited to speak. Now, Gillian became a Unitarian Universalist because she thought that would give her freedom to speak as she wished to join in a community of people who were of diverse thinking, open-mindedness, and committed to justice. And she lived that in her way and was a great spirit in terms of reaching out to others. We're very grateful that she came our way. So when we start any service of consequence in this faith, we always begin by lighting our chalice. I'm going to light a chalice as we would for all Unitarian services, to call our minds and our hearts to what is ultimate and true and beautiful and loving. We count Gillian among those. Now, another tradition we have here in this UU church is that we were gifted a set of memorial bells by a prior minister. They're named in honor of Thomas Jefferson. And we sound these memorial bells at the start of our services. And in memorial services, we sound them one time for every decade of the person's life. Gillian rates 10 bells, which is getting up there. So if you will join me in a moment of silent reflection upon all of our mortality, the life given and the life which will inevitably end, we now will sound the Jefferson bells. Gillian was many things. She was an historical reenactor. She was a storyteller. She was a joker. She was a birder. She was a poet, as we will discover. And she was a mom and a grandmother. We will now hear the poem, Grace, which was written by Gillian and will now be read by her granddaughter, Helen. So we'll invite Helen now to begin that reading.
Thank you, Reverend Pupke, and thank you to, all of us for, from all of us to everybody that has joined us today. We appreciate Reverend Pupke's leadership and figuring out how to celebrate Granny's life, and we appreciate everybody joining us today. The one silver lining is that we get to bring people from all across the world together to celebrate her life, since she was such a world traveler, and so we are grateful for this opportunity to have everybody here and appreciate you guys taking this time with us today. So I just want to take a minute to read something from Granny's own hand and mind, and we felt that it resonated well today, so we wanted to share it with everybody here. This is titled Grace. Grace is the woman clothed in love, soft as the summer's breeze. Gentle as the falling snow, she calms your heart to ease. When we are sunk in deep despair and hope ignores our plea, she breaks the clouds apart and shines like sunlight on the sea. We cannot tell when she will come, she moves with silent tread. We only know that she is here when grief and pain have fled. So when the darkness seems so thick and life an endless night, have faith and trust that she will come and turn the dark to light. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful, Helen. Thank you for reading and sharing with us. Yes. It's easier to do a memorial service if you have a terrific mom who has 3 terrific kids, who grew up into 3 terrific adults and want to share about her life. From the start, it was Phil and Robin and Pam who started to focus in on what must be remembered about Gillian's life. We'll now hear from the 3 people to whom she gave birth, her children. We'll start with Phil.
Evening, everybody. Thanks for coming to our service this evening. I miss her humor. I could always start a joke, sometimes at her expense, sometimes at mine, and she'd always pick right up on it. The latest really funny line, and especially for anxious people, start worrying now, details to follow. I should think this came from years ago because her mother was a supreme worrier. I just recently found a story about my grandmother and her anxiety. I bet Mom and her father would quote it to her just to try and lighten the mood. She still surprised me with anecdotes from her life. Only recently did I learn that in the 1950s, she flew a Spitfire fighter plane with her boyfriend at the time to see the 24-hour race at Le Mans, France, and back. She was very nonchalant about it. I was supremely jealous. A few years ago, I interviewed her about her life up to her wedding, and now I'm so glad I did. Now I can listen to her and her life when I want to. I tasked her recently with continuing on with her life story, but we sadly ran out of time. When she moved to Richmond, she would come over for dinner once a week. I'm going to miss that. At first, she could drive herself. Then I would go pick her up. And near the end, she really couldn't make it over. She had trouble climbing our front steps, even with support. But ever the humorous, she wrote a poem about one such night. It's called The Ballad of the Lost Mom. When Mom gets lost in Richmond and doesn't know the way, late at night, my phone goes beep. I know just what she'll say. Son, I made a wrong turn. I've done my very best, but I don't know what's north or south or maybe east or west. I'm somewhere down on Broad Street. The sign says VCU, but I don't know which way to go. Please tell me what to do. I give her good directions, but see her car fly by. I wave and shout without result and give up with a sigh. I wait for the next phone call and pray she'll still be close. I'm on a street called Lombardy. I must have missed your house. I gently say, turn around, Mom, and turn your lights up bright. Come 6 blocks, you'll see me, and we'll get to bed tonight. Somewhat as an aside, because this is a unique connection I have with my mother, Lisa and I lost a child between Christopher and Molly. I knew that my parents had lost a child between Robin and me, and I found this poem just recently. It's titled Little Son. Why did you leave so soon? Born just yesterday, gone today. No time to know you, yet already known. No time to love you, yet already loved. Grief-stricken, we gather to say goodbye. Commit your tiny body to the fire. Release your innocent soul to journey on. In a small wooden box we carry away, ashes of a life not lived. But we will not forget you, our little son. Often we will wonder who you would have become had we held you in our arms, nurtured you through childhood, watched you grow to manhood, spread your wings and rise to what heights we will never know. You left too soon. There were so many facets to my mom, or Granny as she was called in our house. I'm only scratching the surface, but I do have time to read her stories and her poems. I'm worried about her having a long drawn out death because I know how terrible pulmonary fibrosis can be. I thank our Lord that she passed quickly with the help of hospice. It was a shock, but thankfully brief. I know she's watching over me and my family with the Lord, just as he watches over all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phil. Now we'll hear from Robin. Robin, you'll need to unmute.
Sorry, I was muted.
You're good.
You can hear me now? Unmute
We
myself.
can hear you now. Yes, wonderful.
Sorry about that. So I have a story from a little bit earlier in our lives, and I've titled it Mom and Little Miss Sunshine. So I don't know if anybody of you have seen the movie Little Miss Sunshine, but it's basically a story of a family who come together in a cross-country trip with Little Miss Sunshine going to a glamour show. And so it was a funny movie, but the part that was so funny for us was that we had a camper bus just like the one you see in the picture there. And the thing about the camper bus is after they'd been driving for a long time, they'd heat up, and then if you stopped, they would not start. And you had to either wait until they cooled down, or you had to push start them. And so you can see the picture there of Little Miss Sunshine's family push starting the car and chasing after it to hop in as it's getting started. And so we traveled all across the country in these vans, parking at the top of parking, car parking lots at the top of the hill, so that if the car wouldn't start, we could push start it and get going again. One particular time we were going, Mom took us up to for a week of skiing up in West Virginia. So we went up to Snowshoe Ski Resort in West Virginia. And the weather wasn't very nice going up there. We got stuck in a snowbank, but we managed to get up there. And she kept us skiing all week. She kept us fed and not lost. And we had a great time. And then, of course, there's another storm as we're coming on the way home. And so we were driving from West Virginia, and we had to go through Richmond. And Mom just did not want to stop the car. She was afraid that it wouldn't start again and we'd be stuck on the highway in the middle of a snowstorm. So we got to the toll booths in Richmond, and so she went through the automated, the automatic gate, and she threw the coins at the automatic gate. I think some of them missed, and she just didn't dare stop. She just crashed through the gate. And I remember looking back at, out the back of the car, and there was the gate swinging on the cable in the breeze after we had gone through. And it was, for her, it must have been quite a harrowing experience, but I think it just sort of shows the, how much she loved us, and that she was willing to go through probably what for her was quite terrifying, to give us those great experiences that really, I think, made Pam and Phil and I a family, and you made our family, what it is today, those long trips together. So, Mom was a wonderful person. As you can, see from the poems, and you'll see more from other people speaking. She was extremely kind-hearted and warm, and we're gonna miss her.
Thank you, Robin. That's a great story too. And now we're going to turn to Pam and hear from her thoughts about her mom's life.
Thank you. And oops, that's the other Pam. There's two Pam Dawsons on there. Tell you what, I'll come out to you, Steve. I'll go out to you.
You have the wrong one spotlight. Just one moment. Just one moment, Pam, and we'll get to you.
Okay.
All right.
I can move. It's okay. We have two computers in the house that we're using.
So,
okay. We can do it here, Jean. It's all right.
okay.
Here we go.
Done.
There we go. We're good. We're good. Thank you, everybody. I want to reiterate what everybody has said about thanking everybody for being here, and thank you to Reverend Fouquet, and so glad that so many people could be here from so far away. Thank you.
Her son?
I read obituaries in the paper just about every day.
Hold on one second, Pam.
Okay.
We have someone who unmuted, and so we can't hear Pam. And I think we're going to have the host mute them involuntarily so that we can hear you speak. Please go ahead.
Go ahead now. Okay.
Please.
So I was just saying that I read obituaries in the paper, just curious about who people were, what their legacies were, and sometimes wondering what mine might be. And I just wanted to share some of the things that I think are part of my mom's legacy. Most of you know how much she cared for her family and friends and people in her life. As a parent, she was the one who was the Girl Scout leader. Now I see how much time and energy and patience that takes. She put together a haunted house at Halloween, and I remember touching ghastly eyeballs, which were peeled grapes, tangled moist hair, which was cold spaghetti. And I remember shaking a chilled ghost's hand, which was water, cold water in a glove. She was clever, and she came up with these ideas and experiences for us as children. As a grandparent, she shared the joy of art and reading and books and so many things with my children, sending them supplies, giving them ideas, and encouraging them. She encouraged me to put my son's photograph of a butterfly in the newspaper, and it actually got published. And so she helped me be a better parent. And she helped with sending art and sharing wonderful poems and books with my daughter, Lauren. She also always gave thoughtful gifts that showed that she was thinking about the recipient. One other thing about her attention to others in general, people in her life. She would put out cookies in the holidays for garbage men, garbage people, mail people, newspaper deliverers. She stopped to recognize people that we sometimes might take for granted. And that is something wonderful. And I would like to say that I've inherited that from her. Hope so. She cared for the world around her, whether it was phone drives for her favorite politician, supporting the League of Women Voters, for example, or trying to pass on a love for nature and the importance of its preservation on those never-ending nature walks that I now appreciate. She was curious about the world. She loved to travel, and she immersed herself in places she visited, reading about them, traveling with elder hostels where they teach about local culture, and then sharing what she learned with us when she returned. For all of us, it makes the world a little bit smaller. She was learned. Some of this began when she was a very young girl. She was sent to boarding school at a very young age. And in some years, she was unable to go home at the holidays as her parents were often far away due to her father's military obligations. She would curl up with encyclopedias to read and read them. And I'm sure that was with a cup of tea. As a result, she always won at Trivial Pursuit. Our family remembers one game where we thought a question would certainly have her stumped. The question was, who won the first Super Bowl, excuse me. Many of you may know that my mom certainly did not follow American football. And she said, oh, I don't know, laughing as she does. And didn't she guess correctly the right answer, the Green Bay Packers? And she laughed and laughed, and we groaned about yet another correct answer. She was amazing. Many of you know her wonderful sense of humor. I remember for a few years when she was working at Colonial Williamsburg, many years actually, she gave an evening tour around that early colonial town around Christmas time. But she gave it from the perspective of the British, with her British accent and highlighting the impertinence of those damn colonials. From her friends, I gathered that her tour was quite a hit, and I'm sure she played it up. She was good at that. She did have a great sense of humor that went along with her twinkling eyes that could be mischievous, like those of her father, Basil. She was also a brave woman. She started a new life on her own around age 60, when all her children were off on their own feet. Living with her for a few years after college and after a few years of working before heading to graduate school, I got to see the number of friendships she nurtured and the many activities she got into in that new life in Williamsburg. Through it all, through everything, she was a soft, non-judgmental person to come to, giving good advice, constructive criticism, and encouraging us to see more than one side of things. She was very unique, and I am eternally grateful that she was my mom. I feel so lucky, and I feel like the world is a better place for her presence. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Lovely, Pam. Thank you. And indeed, the world is a better place for your mom's presence in it. Now, we would like to continue this memorial portrait by inviting folks to come into a time of sharing reflections and helping us understand who Gillian was in other dimensions of her life. We're going to start with family members, and I want to invite Kenneth and then Susan to speak. So Kenneth, if you're there, can you unmute yourself and share with us, if you will, about your cousin?
My cousin. Can you hear me? Can you see me? I can't.
Can we spotlight Kenneth?
You
We will in just one moment, Kenneth. We will get that done.
can put me, oh, well, my granddaughter's gone back home.
We are looking for your, you know what, Kenneth, tell us who you're with, whose computer are you on?
Which computer? I'm on an iPad.
Okay, does it have,
Well,
does it belong
yeah,
to,
I've got all the instructions, but
I
there's
think,
nothing
I
in the
think he
script.
doesn't have a picture. It just says Kenneth Roberts. I think it's Kenneth Robertson, right?
okay, no picture. Very good. All right, well, please go ahead, Kenneth. We'd love to hear what you have to say.
Not quite what I originally was going to say. I cut it down in quite a bit, but yeah, I'm Pam's godfather in England. And I first met Gillian in 1953 at a London Glenmore Lodge reunion of people who had been on their courses for climbing, sailing or skiing in the Cairngorm Mountains of Scotland. They were jolly affairs, reminiscing, laughing and riotous Scottish country dancing, very riotous. Having enjoyed myself too much, I was too late to catch the last train to Aldershot, where I was doing my National Service Army training. And while telling someone of my predicament, a very nice young lady said her parents had a spare bedroom. I could go back with her, stay the night, and leave after breakfast. I quickly accepted and thought, what an extremely kind, generous, and thoughtful young lady. Yes, Gillian. She had quickly summed up the situation, thought of a way she could help, and carried it out to perfection. Next morning at breakfast, with her very pleasant parents, her father asked if I was enjoying the army. My reply was, I had to do it, I might as well enjoy it, but really, it was a waste of time. Next, 2 pages, should only turn one. Thank you, sorry. I knew nothing of what her parents did until, getting my coat from the hall to leave, I spotted an envelope addressed to a Brigadier Rackham. And that was my gaffe number 1. Not a good start. Over the next 67 years of her long life, we only met 5 or 6 times. I would love to tell you the various other bloomers I made, mostly involving her father, that brought shrieks of laughter or giggling from Gillian, such as at her and John's wedding, and I won't go into the details, I've cut them out, and later Pam's christening. Another one I made a bloomer, all illustrating her ability to see the funny side of things. They would have taken too long to tell you, and I will go straight to Pam and Steve's wedding celebration, where she was still getting involved, that's Gillian, still helping everybody, and still laughing. At the airport, seeing her off back home, she said how ridiculous it was at security. She had been told to remove her shoes. Surely it was obvious she was not smuggling guns, daggers, or drugs in her shoes, not even illegal immigrants. As we left, she was politely but firmly telling the security officer the same thing. We didn't wait to see who won the argument, but I wouldn't mind hazarding a guess. Sadly, this was the last time I saw her, but in my book, friends are for life, and Gillian must have shared the same book. My abiding memory is still, as my first, a kind, generous, and thoughtful person, quick to sum up situations, offers help to others and get involved. Add to that her tremendous energy, stamina, and wonderful sense of humor, and you have a pretty amazing lady. Luckily for the world, those dominant genes have passed down to her ever-expanding, lovely family. And so, ad infinitum. Thank you for bearing with me. You can't see me, but I blew you all a kiss.
Thank you so much, Kenneth.
Well, sorry, I did cut it down a lot, but there are so many funny incidents. I could go on all night, but I won't. Back to you.
I'm so glad you've written them down, and I hope you'll share what you've written with the family.
Yes, I will.
Splendid.
Now,
Thank you.
I have to unmute myself, I think.
You have to mute yourself now.
Mute myself, yes.
Thank you, Kenneth. Susan, may we hear from you?
Okay. So Gillian loved animals, and she had a...
Hang on a second.
Let's pin Robin, because that's who we're going to hear from.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
There we go.
So Gillian loved animals, and she had a huge heart full of forgiveness. Gillian came to visit us for Thanksgiving one year, the same year we had adopted our dog, Gabe. Gabe came to us as an adult dog from the streets, hardly domesticated. When Gillian went to the food pantry where Gabe's food was stored, Gabe bit her leg. We loved Gabe, but we were devastated. We felt we had to return him to the shelter. This could have meant him being put down, given that he had already been, when we adopted him, we were told he couldn't be adopted by a family with children. Gillian begged for mercy, asking us not to return him. Gabe has become a gentle, loving dog, bringing joy to our lives. We very much feel that Gabe was probably saved by her, and provided him with the opportunity for redemption, and also saved us by keeping Gabe in our lives, and providing us with all the joy of the years with him. And we are forever grateful to her. She was a really amazing person.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a lovely story. Now, I want to invite other family members who might want to say something to do so. And if there's someone who wouldn't mind starting, and if you know how to use the chat, and you want to speak, just put in the chat your name and, let us know you would like to speak. And then we'll call on you as a turn arises. But let's start and ask members of the family who haven't yet spoken if there's any story they would like to share, something that is reminiscent of Gillian's life and her great way of working her way through the world. Who might like to say something? You could raise your hand and we would try to see you. We've got quite a few people on here, so we want to make sure we catch that. Is there anyone who would like to say something? If not, we'll open it up to friends and family. Anyone who would like to share a memory of Gillian?
I think Margaret wants to say something.
All right, we're going to go with Margaret and then Judith. Margaret, you're muted, so would you mind unmuting yourself?
Is that better? Can you
That
hear
is
me?
perfect, thank you.
Oh, you can. Good.
You can.
Well,
Right.
Gillian was my cousin. I was a Rackham too, Robert Rackham's daughter, and they all came from the mill and at Wickham Market. And behind me on the wall is a picture of the church there. But Gillian and her parents were absolutely marvelous to me when my mother died when I was 17. And I used to go to them to stay in London at Langford Place. And we walked Jimmy the dog. They had a dog. Well, she had a dog, but in fact, she hardly walked him. it was always Uncle Basil and Auntie Elsie who walked Jimmy. And I went with them too into Regent's Park. Then I did physiotherapy at King's, and I stayed with them quite a lot, and they were so kind. Gillian was amazing, helping me with revision and things like that. Yes, I have very great memories of her, and I thought it was marvellous when she came across to England with Robin as her escort to our golden wedding, because that must have been quite a feat for her. And she insisted on getting the bus to Heathrow from Ipswich, which I thought was amazing at her age. She went on her own to get the plane back because Robin had had to go back to work. She was a very strong person, and she knew exactly what she wanted to do, and you couldn't deviate her at all. Anyway, I think that's enough of me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margaret. It's great to hear these early memories and see her strength so evident even in those days. Thank you. Who is next? Who did we say? I'm sorry. Judith? Yes.
Hi, my name is Judith Honesty, and I met Gillian through storytelling in Williamsburg, Virginia. She was such a love and such a joy to be with, and I live in Richmond, so I was glad when she moved to Richmond and I could see her more often. One of my favorite memories of her, we were giving a Halloween performance in Williamsburg. And in the front row was a whole family of children, 4 or 5 children. And they were just lovely. And Gillian got up and was telling a story about picking up a hitchhiker. And the children in the front row were having a fit. No, no, don't do that. It's not safe. You can't pick up a hitchhiker. And they made the show for all of the tellers because they reacted so warmly to the story she was telling. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. That's a great reminiscence about her storytelling. Who else would like to speak? Remember, you could just let us know by waving your hand, or please put your name in the chat and we'll make sure that you can speak next. John, did you want to say something about her time in the Williamsburg Church? John Hochella?
Yes, Reverend Jean. I'm John Hochella from Williamsburg, Virginia. And at the Williamsburg Unitarian Universalists, Gillian would, we had part of our worship story for all ages, and Gillian would often tell the story, and I just have fond memories of her stories at the Williamsburg Unitarian Universalists.
The stories for all ages are what we share with the youngest members to the eldest members, and the children are very tolerant of hoping that the parents get it. So thank you, John.
Mm-hmm.
Who else would like to speak? Helene, would you mind?
I can do that.
Helene? We need you to unmute, hon.
Francis Birch.
Yeah.
There you are.
I met Gillian at Daytimers, which is our elders group where we would meet once a month and have a meal together. And I was struck by her kindness and her gentility. She told me a lot about her life in Williamsburg, and I was just amazed at what she did in her older years. I was also a member of Readers Theater, where we would put on productions in the church. And I was tasked to telling the members of Daytimers about our productions, especially the ones in the matinees so that they could go in the middle of the day. And I would make the announcement, and at least 3 or 4 times, Gillian showed up and made sure that she knew that she told me how much she enjoyed it. She loved stories and storytelling of all kinds. We will really miss her presence, but she'll always be a part of me. I know that. Thank you.
John and Carolyn, would you like to speak now? Thank you, Helene.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Okay. We met Gillian when Robin and Sue were married. I'm Sue's mom. This is Sue's stepfather. But Gillian was always such a warm person, and we struck up quite a little correspondence there. And she knew that John and I played bridge, and she sent us cards from Williamsburg. And on the back of each card was history about Williamsburg. I didn't dare play with the cards because I didn't want to wear them out, but she would send long letters. And just describing so many things that she was involved in. And she was such a warm, caring person. And we certainly did appreciate her sense of humor. She has imparted that to her son, Robin, whom we enjoy. But she's a lovely gal.
Long letters
Thanks.
are a thing of the past, it seems. I'm so glad that she was still practicing doing that. That's great. Everybody write a long letter to somebody today in her honor.
Mm-hmm.
Anne and Jim, you need to unmute. There you are.
Okay. I'm also a member of Daytimers and enjoyed Gillian's company during our meetings. She's such a sweet person. And the last time I saw her was at a church service, and she does have a good sense of humor, because that day we were both talking about our loss of height. And you wouldn't think that would be something funny, but it was funny. So I think about that a lot, and I'm really going to miss her company and her sweetness and her fun, loving self.
Thank you. Who else would like to say something before we close our service?
I do.
Okay, Mike McDonald, and who was the voice that I heard?
My name
Whose
is
voice?
Nuri. Can you hear me?
Okay. Well, why don't you go ahead and then we'll come back to Mike.
Okay. Are you going back to Mike, or are you listening to me?
No, you go ahead first, please, and then we'll go to Mike.
Okay. My husband was Grayson Williams.
Well, cool. We seem to have lost your voice. I think your computer may have frozen a bit. You might want to block your picture. Could you turn off your camera? If you Uku, turn off your camera. All right, now try and okay. Uku, unfortunately, we can't. Uku, are you there? If you are and can turn off your camera, we might be able to hear what you have to say. Unfortunately, your computer seems to be frozen or lack bandwidth to share with us. Mike, why don't you go ahead and share, and we'll hope that Uku could come back.
Okay, thanks. Hey, everyone.
Please go ahead.
Are you picking me up?
We are.
Okay, great. Well, my name is Mike McDonald. I've known the Dawsons for probably since the mid-'70s. One of the earliest memories I can recall going by the house is at 4 o'clock there was always was tea, and I don't know how they could drink it. The pot would boil, they'd pour it in a cup, and they'd start drinking it right away, which, you know, is literally just a little less than temperature of steam. So, but I never quite got the hang of how they were doing that. But so I moved to Williamsburg, and I don't remember if Gillian moved to Williamsburg before or after I did. I moved there in '93, but I know she was working at Colonial Williamsburg as the interpreter and a docent. But every time we would talk, it seemed like she was never there. She hardly worked at all. It seemed like she was always on vacation. She would say, "Oh yeah, we're going to go to the Great Wall of China in a couple of weeks, but we have to go warm up for that with a hike up Machu Picchu." So she had all these great travel stories of Europe and Asia and South America and all over the world. So it was some amazing travel destinations that she went to, where she just had such a great time with her friends, Anna Grace and some other ladies she knew from Williamsburg. And then, of course, most recently have been all the, what I'm going to miss the most, I think, is some of the
Mike, are you there? Mike, we can't hear you. We may have lost you, or you may have self-muted.
Oh, he's muted.
He just put a note in the, he'll be back in a second.
We're burning everyone's bandwidth today. So let me just check in and see if there's anyone who might like to speak in the interim.
I'm sorry.
Oh, Mike, you're back.
For a second. Yeah.
We lost you when you were talking about the one thing you remember.
Yeah, I had to mute for a second. Sorry. So there have always been these really great Christmas presents, and they've ranged for everything from socks to some sort of unique hat, or decks of cards, or Star Trek flip up deck calendars, and so got you remember that for the lights on and lights off. And but just the other day found present from last year, and it was the Air Force Survival Guide for the Wilderness. So I think she knew, she probably wanted me to make sure I would be able to survive in any kind of apocalypse. So so that was Gillian, and I always considered her my second mom, and the Dawsons as my second family. So, but I'll always have her in my heart and mind. So she's never gone. She's not gone for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. It's a lovely reminiscence. And I'll ask one more time if there's anyone, if you're on the phone and you would like to say something, just unmute yourself, and you're welcome to speak. Jessica O'Brien, did you want to speak?
Yes, please.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. I just remembered, I was really sad when Gillian moved to Richmond. I was sad to lose her because Gillian showed up at every social justice event. She would always be there, and it was so impressive. She would do whatever she could, but she was always there with her presence, willing to talk about what we might do and willing to listen and be part of things. I was very impressed by that. I did miss her a lot. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Others? And anyone on the call, please just unmute yourself and speak if you'd care to.
Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead, sir.
Well, it's only Kenneth Robertson. Oh, well, I've lost my picture, but we did have my picture showing. Can you see me? No. Can you hear me? No.
We can certainly hear you.
Oh, but you still can't see me.
Not yet. I'm sure you're a very handsome gentleman, but we're being deprived at the moment.
Can I say, do I press start video?
Start video is good. That can help.
Am I there? No.
No, sir.
No, don't worry. I'm not worth looking at. It was just to seeing Margaret Booth Smith remind me of a little incident with my little baby Austin 7, which Gillian certainly went in, but so did Margaret at one time, which she's probably forgotten. But this was up in Edinburgh, and I asked John and Gillian to come for a little tour around the city in my funny little jalopy. And they had, well, John actually couldn't come, but Gillian did with 2 friends. And Gillian was absolutely hooting with laughter because the 2 passengers at the back had to sit facing backwards. Well, she thought that pretty funny. And we set off. The extension was something I'd put on. And we rather had a slight incident that the extra weight in the back broke part of the chassis, which lowered itself very neatly into one of the sunken tram rails. Edinburgh still does have trams, but these are the very old-fashioned kind. And we were hooked into the city tram system. I had no control over where we were going. I just had to let the thing follow the tram rails. Well, to Gillian, that was even more hilarious. To me, well, I really felt pretty terrible because I thought we're going to have a head-on crash with a tram soon who got no control over avoiding us. But luck of the devil, we hit a bump, bumped into another rail, which took us into a siding. I did a quick repair. We all got back in again. Off we went on our jolly way, but avoiding the tram ways altogether. All of this to Gillian was just fun. No signs of any panic for that intrepid lady. To me, I was worried. Well, sorry you can't see me, but there we are. I've gone. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you, Kenneth. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay. Well, it's been a good reminiscence. Oh, I'm sorry. Bonnie, please go ahead.
Bonnie Barrett had her hand raised.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Everybody else mute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, I unmuted. Hi, I'm Bonnie Barrett, and my husband, the man with me is my husband, Bob Clever, who is the father of Sue Clever Dawson, Robin's wife. And that is how we met Gillian shortly after they were married. We had a meeting. We were going to the art museum, and Robin and Sue and Gillian joined us. And that was such a pleasure. And here is this little lady, just full of energy and mind that was just full of everything. So youthful in her just her thinking and everything. And we talked a lot about art, we talked about books, we had lunch, and I just thought, wow, what a dynamite woman. And we met her on other occasions. I believe we went to the museum again a second time. Then we met her a couple of times at the house when she came to visit for dinner. But she was I was just so impressed with her and the work that she was doing at Williamsburg. And then we talked about politics. I mean, everything. You could talk with this woman about anything. And I was like, oh my God. And of course, at the wedding, we saw her too. So I feel very grateful to have met someone like her, who was a little bit older than we are, who was as energetic, as involved, as vivacious as she was. And we always kept up asking Robin and Sue, how she was doing. And so all I can say is thank you to God for putting her on this earth. It's a pleasure to know.
Lovely. Thank you for that memory. Has anyone else wanting to speak? Is there anyone else? I apologize for not being able to see you all on one screen. And if you're chatting, I'm not certain. Oh, I see. Kat Burns has a reminiscence in the chat. And we have a thank you from Robin and, of course, from Pam and from Phil for everyone taking time this evening and joining in the remembrance of their mom, which is lovely. Okay, so I want to extinguish our chalice as we draw this to a close. When we extinguish the chalice for a memorial service, it has a lot of meaning. A friend of mine who's a minister often likes to say, watch the smoke, because as the smoke rises, so do our memories and our love for this person. And Gillian, certainly being a lover of life and of beauty and of nature, is a soul who I believe remains in this universe, in this cosmos. I'll extinguish this chalice in gratitude, in profound gratitude for the example of someone who chose to live life with full vigor, brilliance, energy, compassion, and hope. We bless the memory and the gift of Gillian Dawson. We were gifted by knowing and caring about her and being the recipient of her great enthusiasms. And now we will hear from Molly, her granddaughter Molly, a reading of Gillian's poem, Joy.
Hello. I think it goes without saying that my grandmother was an incredible woman and someone who served as a great example to me of what it means to be a strong female. In a conversation I had with her within the last year, she expressed how important she felt it was to not have animosity or feelings of resentment towards anyone that has been a part of your life. She felt that holding on to feelings of hurt or distrust did not serve you in the long run, and that the best path forward was learning to recognize the good in everyone and the good in the times you spent with them and hold on to that. I think that is something that a lot of people in this world could probably stand to learn, and it has provided me a lot of comfort in the last month or so as I hold on to all the good times that I had with her. As many have mentioned, my grandmother was a very talented poet, and so now I will read one of her poems that I feel embodies this sense of holding on to the good as it propels you into the future. And so with that, I'm going to read a poem by my grandmother called Joy. Joy is the happiness that does not depend on what happens. It wells up inside of us unasked for, unexpected. When life takes a sharp left turn, yet for a moment, we only see the morning bird singing in the tree, cotton ball clouds sailing overhead in a deep blue sky, the bud about to become a flower, lovers walking hand in hand, children playing, a sudden burst of glorious music from a neighbor's open window, curling like an ocean wave, flooding the air, capturing your heart, or whatever lifts your spirit. We know that this will abide no matter what happens. Thank you.
Indeed, we know that this will abide. Thank you very much for that reading. That was beautiful. Your grandmother would love it. We draw to a close now this celebration of the life of Gillian Dawson, and it need not be an ending to our beloved remembrances and gratitude. May we all support the family in this time of transition, encourage them, share stories as we recall them, and be grateful for the community that was formed today to remember the wonderful, vivacious spirit of Gillian Dawson. May she rest in peace. Blessed be. Amen. And thank you all for joining us at First Unitarian Online. And please stay safe. Good afternoon, everyone.